Welcome to In Sync, episode one, part two with Indras Net. And I'm here today again with Jake Kotze from Winnipeg. Uh, Jake is a synchromystic artist who's been making synchromystic videos and writing and blog work for the past 20 years. And so with this second episode, we're gonna kind of dive in and talk about some of Jake's early work. And I think something I'd like to do with this show is maybe on as I have Jake on, maybe on a monthly flow or something like that. We'll talk about an astrological symbol for the month and maybe dive into some film symbolism and sync surrounding it. So, being that we're in the sign of Gemini, I thought it would be pretty easy to start with the duality symbolism of the two pillars kind of conjoined of the Gemini symbol. So, Jake, you gathered a lot of sync around the Twin Towers as a symbol back when you were first starting your work. Um, what was it about the Twin Towers and what kind of symbolism surrounded that event that really caught your eye and had you seemed like you were talking about transformation of consciousness being associated with the event? Like, what was it that you were picking up on with that, all that sync?
Well, I guess, it was such a huge thing, and it was like a portal of seeing how profound connections in media can reflect real life events. And so I think it really sort of put me on the track of synchronicity more solidly than I already was. It sort of just made that very clear to me that that's one of the focal points of my interest. And, I feel like I went deep into the symbolism of 9/11 on many levels. Like for me, like just looking for connections in movies and in media that sort of echo. The World Trade Center has an alarming amount of media where it's destroyed in movies or in comics. So it really feels like when you put them all together and you meditate on them that there's a sort of a precognitive like thing that artists and creative people were picking up when they were, depicting the Twin Towers or picking a location for a disaster. There was so many examples where the Twin Towers are, threatened or destroyed or things in popular culture. You can think of the Coup had like an album cover where the detonator gets pushed just before 9/11, sort of in the same spots, Armageddon, you have like the meteors hitting the thing. There's so many examples.
Mm,
But then for me, I also went into the symbolism of the idea that, they're twins. And I feel like obviously this connection between Gemini and the twins really stands out. Um, but it for me was sort of because of this, it brought so much awareness. It was such a focal point of awareness. And, probably in recent history, apart from COVID, like one of the biggest like focal points of awareness. And for me, those always seem like they're like portals of insight and even awakening. And I guess I made all these videos about calling it the Stargate. And to me, it was like one, because there were synchronicities that were directly associating it with the Stargate, like even in, movies like 2001 Space Odyssey, the sequence where you go to Jupiter is called the Stargate. And there's that whole connection between the monolith and the Millennium Hilton, which was this building directly adjacent to the towers that you can see in shot with footage of the towers, being hit or crumbling or whatever. You see this monolith, 2001 being the same year as 9/11 and the movie. So there was this direct connection between like, to me, like the Stargate theme with the monolith. And then to me, that also became like a spiritual thing. Stargate being like just a gateway to awareness. And obviously, this is a powerful tragedy, but I feel like it's a bit of a phoenix thing where there is a bit of a, you know, there is a awareness focusing so much on this one event seemed to me like a bit of a portal of awakening. And then it became kind of like, well, out of two becomes one, I think would be sort of one of the
mm,
key things that, and it's also like they built this new tower there, which was one. It's kind of like the two became one, which to me was kind of like
mm,
symbolic of this new consciousness, divided consciousness. becoming
Mm.
connected into one. And I often feel like Gemini is sort of, it's like I even hear like I in there, Gemini. It's like
Right.
Gemini. It's like there's this hint of like an an awareness, a union between the two. Thoughts like that is, I was also I would often think about the middle pillars. Like to me, there was like a phantom pillar in the middle of the towers. Is there's like, or even thinking of it as like a doorway. It's like the
Right.
two pillars on the side, and the how connected it was to Solomon's temple was like a big thing, to me
Hmm.
that the Masons have their tracing boards and they have the two pillars. So just I think the Stargate mega ritual idea to me, which I made these videos early on in my sync career, I'm very much seeing the sort of like ritualistic aspect of 9/11 and how this symbolism in things and in mystery schools like the pillars and the pentagram, like tracing boards, Freemasonic tracing boards would always have like, the most common ones would have like the pillars and the pentagram. And
Hmm.
that very closely mimics the reality of 9/11 with, pillars and the Pentagon veiling a
Right.
pentagram kind of idea. So to me, I very early on latched into that idea, which I think, for some people was like a very like, oh, there's an occult ritual happening here that the elites are playing on humanity kind of thing. And I feel like maybe in the beginning there was a part of me that was like, maybe there's reality to that. But now I feel like it's a far more like spiritual archetypal symbolism and this doorway with the pillars, and then this, transition into like a higher state of awareness. And even for me, like very specifically, I feel like synchronicity, is one of the things which is union to me. Meditating on 9/11 and the powerful synchronicities of to me was to me a portal into sort of a union awareness. So, that two and the duality, and even, we talked in the last episode about how 42 sort of encodes this idea how everything is for two, and there's kind of
Yeah.
a weird dynamic where to be aware of the one you need two, so there's a
Hmm.
interplay between um, duality and union and existence and drama itself in this thing. So yeah, those are just some thoughts about 9/11 and how I would connect it to the duality idea in Gemini.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like you know, for me when I was looking at your work and just taking that lens of looking at pop, with this like, a little bit of understanding of symbolism throughout time and stuff. And because I remember, there was some other stuff where it was like there was talk of like how the three pillars, of the Masonic tracing board also kind of go back to the three pyramids of Giza. And, it kind of like sync can open up that kind of mythic field of reality that we live in, like um it's almost like through film when we depict, these aspects of life or these like um I don't know, like fringe esoteric understandings that they kind of come out in film and like show us the mythic plane almost, you know what I mean? And how like events seem to have, their obvious um things that they sync with, like the way that symbolism and reference, works through the mind. Sync kind of like I feel like it opens up like a mythic um plane that like so when you're looking at different comic books, um, you can see how the human mind seems to like bring out the same symbolism whenever approaching the same stuff, and like it's almost like you can kind of through sync get these yeah, nuggets of like gnosis about that mythic plane, you know what I mean? And
Oh,
um
sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I often feel like sync to me is like cracking the egg or this piercing a veil of like reality seeming solid, seeming to behave with these scientific laws. But then underneath it, there's like a sort of an archetypal world or a dream world. And it seems, to connect me more to this idea that reality itself comes from that and is a reflection of that. And then underneath the seeming separate objects of time and space, there's a like sort of dreamlike, united, surreal, almost free association existence that's like, and these things are just sort of like the things of the world are just sort of like solid outcroppings of this ocean of free association, or a mind that's vast, unlimited. And yeah, I just feel like every now and then the movies and the synchronicities and things just sort of like, aha, just sort of open up that veil and show that world to me, this sort of the real reality to me, is the thing that sync is showing up, and that the movies and tracing their connections and stuff to me is sort of suggesting this real world that's, you just lift up the little corner of reality and whoop, there's this whole
Right.
thing. And it seems connected to the things that the mystics and the people, the occultists and the magicians and all these people have always been talking about, and the symbols, like if you tarot cards, the astrology, those symbols seem to be more primary to the architecture. And then the things that associate to that, when you sort of meditate on them, you see this world beyond the sort of linear, concrete, normal world. I don't know.
Right, right, totally, yeah. And that's cool. I had a dream many years ago. I think it was like probably shortly after we had done the first Sync conference, but I had a cool dream where it was like the Sinkhole crew was in a movie theater, and we had like unscrewed the screws at the bottom of a giant movie poster, and like by taking the screws out, like the giant poster fell, and I don't know, it like revealed this cosmic machinery or something like that, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
yeah, that dream always kind of stayed for me whenever, it feels like with sync we see the way that like the mind every year rolls out, like new understanding and integrated awareness, and like through the movie theater, temples, this like new awareness comes out, and everyone kind of shares in, that field, that like mythic field, and
Yeah.
um it's yeah, it's really beautiful when you again like you step outside of the single mind or the ego perspective or the time bound perspective, and like um it's yeah, there's a really beautiful form of communion that like that cinema and media, is. We were just talking before a little before we started recording about it, almost as like a yoga, like sync practice can really be like a yoga, and yeah, do you have anything you'd like to share on that sync yoga? Is that like a practice you have? I know you go to the movies sometimes, or
Well, when you were talking about the movie screen, I was just thinking about how the act of telling a story to me is like a fractal of existence. So it's almost like
Mhm.
your existence to me is like a narrative. It's like a story. It's like the infinite being kind of shaped into an arc. So it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's sort of your life has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So it's kind of like when you watch a movie, it's like you're making a fractal of existence. And
Mhm.
it's kind of like, because it's a fractal, it like contains the whole. And if I look long enough and hard enough at a movie, it's like I see, every time I watch it, I'm different. I feel like the infinite mystery is on that screen, and it's sort of a mirror also of your consciousness and your story and your narrative. And I just feel like the level of magic and mystery that's happening when you watch a movie, you know, it can function on many levels. Sometimes it's just entertainment and that's great, but the possibility of that magical screen to interact with you and your narrative is, vast and powerful. And sync to me is, by and large that. But then, when it comes to the sync as yoga thing, it's very much, I think a lot of people listening to this, if you weren't familiar with sync, would be like, we're crazy. Like we're just talking about movies, and now we're talking about God and about the mystery of the ages and about, three Masons. Is like, it sounds kind of bonkers, but um, for me, really, it is like the movie, the practice of synchronicity, these the connecting these things and being aware of them becomes a way of enlightenment, of being aware of the higher force that creates everything. And often sync becomes a form of, just to me, the essence of yoga and meditation is to, remind yourself of who I am, what is the true nature of the witnessing presence, and the
Mhm.
synchronicity, it almost forces me, though it's not like like a sort of a push. It's not like a mean thing, but having to contend with what it is will often, yes, there's a reality beyond my ego identity of who and what I am that to me sufficiently explains what synchronicity is. And if I step into that, I go, okay, cool. It gives me peace about who I am, and it gives me peace about what synchronicity is. And, it's this healing thing, which I think, yoga and meditation and all these things, I think that's their purpose. So it becomes to me very much as much a form of, spiritual work as, all these other traditions would be. And I think that's what I'm trying to like share with people is that sync, you know, can and movies, can be a deeply spiritual thing, a teaching, healing
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah, I love that. And for me, that's, a big theme in my work. Like, as a young person, I was really attracted to that veil, like my consciousness has just always been pretty um obsessed with it ever since I was a child. My first like digital camera or whatever as a kid, I was running around the house trying to capture ghosts on the camera. And for me, that liminal, um that question of, what is beyond, this lifetime, or, what's beyond the body, um what is this inner plane, that dreams come from and that art comes from. And so my mind has always been um interfacing with that screen in different ways. And I think my work with the film A Thin Skin or Membrane series, it really like it dives into that screen thing as like um the movie screen being like a actually like a shared um inner space projected externally, and that like that that entering into like beholding that space, yeah, it can reveal like real gnosis and like deep understanding. And like I've noticed for me that over the years as I like in my like personal mystical career, kind of like meditating nightly and taking on different consciousness expansion exercises and stuff, that like as I was like aspiring in my regular life for more spiritual union and stuff, like I could see like that reflection in the films that I was watching. And it's like there's a beautiful thing that happens where like the myth of your personal life, you suddenly like that mirror opens up, like the membrane mirror of the film, and like suddenly you realize like you are what's also on the screen and changing. And you know what I mean, like that identity falls away, and
Yeah.
and a new identification with the self and with like um yeah, just those deeper, more mystical spiritual planes of existence, like seem to like, yeah, they're captured well in film. And so like I love that, with stuff like we were talking about in the last episode, doing ceremony, um would always have like profound viewings of films right after. And it's um yeah, like it feels just very like um natural, like we were saying before, that it's like a yoga, and that it's like at times it can definitely feel like you're having huge revelations, and there definitely are times where like big, sync happens. But like yeah, I really appreciated the yoga of it in these past 20 years. Like as time goes on, I kind of like explore the astrological signs for my own like deepening understanding. And then looking at the world, and the films on the screen are like giving me more rich understanding of the astrological sign that I'm in. And you know what I mean, like it's yeah, there's a
Yeah.
beautiful path I think that opens up. And I used to have a hard time finding the spiritual in pop and in like the cities and in material stuff, like it was for me, it was like the last layer of it felt like God's, veil that I had to like break through to really feel um I don't know, like a full sense of union, because there was an old part of my consciousness that felt that there was somehow like an other or an unnatural thing, or that like pop couldn't have the light of truth shining through it. But like over time, it was a healing thing for me to let that veil fall away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like for sure it's not just movies where I, experience synchronicity. It's actually, you know, I feel like just as much or even more like in my day-to-day life, I think of something and then somebody talks about it, or,
Mhm.
synchronicity is just constantly popping up. And I feel like it happens a lot in movies, but the movie just became like a very good way of sharing this. It's kind of like
Mhm.
we have this shared web of media that we can reference. And I can like if I want to share one of my personal synchronicities, I have to give you the context of my life and the
Mhm.
context of the event. And often it's like telling somebody about your dream, it's like or your poetry or something like that. I think it people can share those and it can be meaningful, but it's often hard to convey the power of a sync if you didn't live it. But
Mhm.
I feel like a movie, because we have watched the same movies and we have that common web of associations. If I show a synchronicity with the movies, that's a way of sharing synchronicities. So, I can show these things and people can go, oh yeah, I've seen that. I know what you're talking about. And, here are the synchronicities. So I, I feel like that's one of the uses to me of movies. And it actually, for me, has become more the use of movies than as entertainment. Like
Mhm.
I still enjoy going to the movies for entertainment and I like watching movies and shows for entertainment purposes, but I feel like my primary engagement with media is this thing we're talking about, where I'm like thinking about, you know, what other movie have I seen this actor in, and what is the context of those movies, and how does it compare with what I'm seeing right now, you know?
Mhm.
And that's kind of my relationship with media, is like I'm looking for synchronicities. And because I'm watching a movie that I can take a still of or a clip of, I can then put it on the internet, you know, later and somebody can go, oh, okay, I see that connection kind of thing. So and I feel like in a way for me, it's to me the destiny of movies is to be this carrier of sync, to be this unveiler of sync. At least one of its big purposes for me has become this being this tool that does this. And I feel like there's some sort of, you know, I think more and more as people become aware of this, I think that aspect of movies and media, will be included in what it is perceived as, that its function is very much to, help show these connections. I've
Mhm.
and I feel like we talk about movie stars, and I've often thought about how stars are like constellations and those form the pictures that we associate. We were talking about astrology earlier. Those pictures to
Mhm.
me are
Yeah.
like patterns in the stars. And the movies have patterns in them. This is what we're talking about. We're talking sync is the pattern in the movies. So the
Mhm.
how wonderfully it reflects in the sort of heavens is to me like part of its destiny, and part of its why it exists is so that we can notice these things and talk about them and share them in culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I feel that like to me, like I was saying before about that the veil, the membrane veil, the 42 and the rainbow are a big sync node that we've spoken a lot about along the way. And like for me, the number 42 as this like, it's just kind of like this God code thing or something, like it feels like the 42 is in the, spiritual climax or a very spiritual key point of like every film. And and it really gets to a point to where you can see people maybe doing some reference, like, we got Patrick Swayze as a ghost in a subway, 42nd Street, but also 42nd Street subway is one of the most popular, subways in New York City. So it's like, are they
Yeah,
really doing
42nd
the,
Street. Yeah.
you know, is this an Egyptian underworld reference, or is it simply the subway is a good metaphor and they just did New York City and it just the 42 is there because of that? You know what I mean? Like,
That
and then
that
does it matter,
exactly doesn't matter. It's because it's kind of like
Yeah.
when you start consciously using symbols in things, then they're supercharged with meaning. And if you're unconsciously doing it, they're supercharged with meaning. And then really it becomes like, intentionality. I think sync challenges a lot of that, sort of how important is it to have this intention versus not being aware of it all? And then also what's the difference between, a pure synchronicity where no one had any inkling of the associated context versus somebody who's like, if I put a 42 in a picture that I'm painting, clearly I'm going to be thinking about how it's this strange attractor kind of thing.
Mhm.
But that's not going to change the fact that the 42 has this charge. It's just, yeah, that
Right,
puzzle is
exactly.
very fascinating to me.
Yeah, I like the meditation for me. That's like another one that the 42 is powerful for is like because we do know that like film can be, used by like as propaganda and that there's interest and all that kind of stuff. But the 42, like even if it's being used by a person who knows that it's just a powerful attractor and like it's just useful to throw in there or something, you know what I mean? But like even that, like even people surrounding a symbol and employing it and using it for even intentionally, like that's still just a mystery. Like why does that work? Why is that happening? Like
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
even like the Target logo is a big, huge ancient logo, and like it's still a very common logo people interface with every day in life. And it's like, just the fact again, like that's there is just more of a sign that these symbols like live with us and not so much that there's like a massive agenda at play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I totally. And, you know, we feel like because we can intentionally do something that we're in charge, but I don't feel like
Hmm.
that's necessarily the whole of the story. It's like, I intend to be here talking to you today, but it's very possible that circumstances could have happened that I was not able to talk to you today. If the universe didn't want me to be talking to you today, I wouldn't be talking to you today, in a manner of speaking. I'm just saying that my
Right.
intention, or if I decide I'm going to paint a 42 right here, right now, I can maybe
Hmm.
do that, but maybe I don't have paint. Maybe I don't, maybe I slip and break my leg over there on the way. I'm just saying it takes more than just my intention for something to happen. It takes the universe to work together to make something happen and allow it to happen. Maybe the movie that the 42 in is will be crap and no one will ever see it, kind of thing. To make everything
Hmm.
come together, to have that thing be in the context it's in, is more than just the intention of the people. It's everything working together and allowing it to happen. Like Target could have made their logo that, and the people who workshopped it could have gone, no, that's not going to work, and it could have ended up something different. I just feel like there's so much to something transpiring that, and we just feel like, well, I decided or I didn't decide. But to me, there's a bit of a mystery in the what allows things to unfold. That's more than just I intended it and then it happened.
Hmm. Yeah, that's something that I also love about the 42 mystery. Like, I like calling it the 42 Enigma. I think Wilson used to call 23 the 23 Enigma. So I'm always compelled to
Right.
call the 42 the Enigma. But You know, it
Yeah.
it really does feel that there's a beautiful dance of the 42 through films that like your work and my work has really helped capture, like you do a lot of great stuff with its resonance with Jupiter and like Zeus, like, this God resonator thing to it, like Jupiter and Zeus being this old symbol of divinity that, really resonates strong with God and divinity. And so like um but then you've got the Hitchhiker's Guide angle that people are putting the 42 in films. It seems a clear Hitchhiker's reference sometimes, and other times it's like, okay, Alice in Wonderland, there's a Lewis Carroll reference. And it's amazing because the 42 has all these little lanes of inspiration that have inspired the group mind to incorporate it in film. And then there's also just randomness, it seems, and other stuff, unknowable stuff. And that's where that beautiful mystery comes in. And 42 being the answer to life, the universe, and everything. I love that, like, one of the biggest suspicions people have is that he chose 42 because I believe there's like a encoding for like binary computing. 42 becomes kind of like a, what's the word? Like a variable. Like it can mean anything you want. Like, and that was kind of like because the 42 is also an asterisk for shorthand in uh that coding stuff. The 42 is like it's a symbol for life is what you make it, and like the meaning of life is you and whatever its mystery unfolding is, and so I just love that that came out that way too, that like, whether or not Adams ever confirmed that, that there's a just a beautiful swirling mystery around the 42, the asterisk as a symbol for God, all the way going back to Sumeria, and like, so when we're looking at the 42, we're also looking at like an asterisk symbol. And, there's like just a beautiful, web that surrounds that 42 mystery. And it seems to in
Yeah.
itself teach you about the mystery,
Yeah. And then I mean, then there's also just like, where does the symbol of Jupiter come from? Like, if we make that Jupiter association, there's a mystery there. I think, some people say, it's the Eye of Horus, which is in its own way pretty fascinating, if that's an
Right.
association. But then there's also like, some people associated with the medical sign, the sort of like for medicine. And
Right.
I don't know. There's so many things that you could go, but even while you were talking, I was thinking about Jackie Robinson being 42 and just how
Right.
I don't know, he's just this pivotal like uh opening up sports and to to everyone kind of thing, just this union to me, and then even
Right.
the poster talks about
It said,
um
was it in a game
divided by
divided by
color.
color? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
divided by
Yeah, that
color.
killed me
That's
when I
so
saw that.
rainbow. That's so
Whoa, I
rainbow.
was like, you gotta be kidding me with that. They gotta be. I'm like, what?
That's right. And if that poster, variations of that poster will have Harrison Ford, who is, the first words he says in Blade Runner is 4 2 2 4 4 2. And he's like haggling the price or something with his pasta or something, the noodles he's buying in Chinatown. I don't know, whatever's going on.
Right,
And
but it's in there for sure. Yeah.
in there, and he's like jumping off the 42 bus in The Fugitive, just this impact, The Fugitive. And I don't know. I see it so recurringly, just this um, context that you could associate with one thing being it's not intended, or it takes perspective to notice it, like seeing it with Harrison
Mm,
Ford. Um, there's no significance to it unless you start to plug into it from this other angle, but then you notice it's here. So, stuff like that. I just
right.
really, to me, it's very exciting to watch a movie and then to realize, whoa, this is something that I've seen before. And now I'm seeing it again in this other movie, or to, see something new, make a new association. To me, it's a very exciting thing, and, you know,
Yeah, it's cool. It feels to me like I wrote about that in my sync book chapter a little bit. Because like, there's a cool thing to sync where like you can look at an actor and you can realize that like okay, this person brings certain like gifts of energy into the world of acting, and so then that ends up getting them typecasted almost, and like that typecasting becomes that's a very archetypal thing that happens, and like a person becomes like we were talking about, almost like a constellation or a tarot, like a living tarot card, and it's not to limit these people or their art into one thing. A lot of artists are dynamic and can embody many archetypes, but um, there's something about how even in our lives, you can take a look at your own life and start looking at like what are your favorite superheroes, and what deities are you attracted to in the world, and like what are your favorite symbols, and like what symbols surround you and what does that say about yourself, and like you can start to even do that same kind of looking at a movie star. You can look at yourself as the star in your own life movie and kind of learn more about yourself from like the symbols that you're attracted to. And then for me that's been a big thing, like my attraction to the rainbow as a symbol has just been like a 20-year meditation that just really continues to just unveil more and more beauty, that symbol, and the light, that it represents in a sense, and the union that it represents. So
Yeah.
yeah, for me it's a really beautiful thing that I love to encourage others to kind of like, and throughout the year or the week or your day, like, think about what symbols are you attracting, and like what do the symbols to the places and things you do like say about, where you're at in your journey in the movie, you know what I mean? And so it's,
Yeah.
yeah, to me there's a beautiful, that mythic layer of life can open up, and the joy of life can come through that.
Yeah. And it just makes me think about this natural organic process between the things that I'm into that I pull towards me because I want them around me, like the
Mm,
objects and the symbols and things that I associate with. But then there's also a bit of a push. Like it's kind of like I decide, but at the same time, things come on my path. And then prying apart,
mm,
you know, things we were prying apart the difference between, what is my influence versus what is something that's influencing me. And
mm,
where's the line between that? Is there a line between that? And I guess for me, it's like there isn't really a line between that, but there is like sort of a convention, uh, sort of a natural sort of a feeling of there's a separation that I feel like is part of what allows for the drama of life and an existence to begin with. That's natural and normal, and that's nice. Um,
mm,
but yeah, as you're saying that, I'm just thinking about the things in my life and then it's like I want more elephants in my life or something like that. It's like something
I
that I was
love that.
thinking recently that I have like elephant objects around and I've made sync videos about elephants, one that I never even finished, and then I was just
Mm,
thinking about why is that appeal there? Why am I into elephants and that kind of thing? And then it's like, I can like, and I have physically carried elephants into my space, but then I will
mm,
also run across them during the day, it'll like through synchronicity. And then there's that,
right.
how much can I force a symbol to associate with me versus what is like a natural thing? And I feel like it comes back to that
Mm,
thing where we were saying, um, just because you intentionally use it in a movie doesn't mean that it doesn't still have power in the fact that it's there. And it's the same. Like if I surrounded myself with elephants, I could say, well, this is like me consciously doing that. But at the same
right.
time, it's the universe allowing it to happen. And also, bringing these elephants into my life. So it just, I don't know, that's just something that I've been kind of meditating on is just this how it feels like an organic process for the objects that are attracted to you to be in your space. And then for you also to be able to self-select which objects but there's a mystery to, which of those things are going to end up being things that associate to you. Like you say, the rainbow is this powerful strange attractor for you. And I feel like for other people, it might be different things. There's clearly animals and numbers that I don't feel a great appeal to, and that mystery of why that is for me, I'm not interested in that number or that particular symbol. I don't know, but it's
Mhm.
profoundly interesting to me that there are these things that associate to us, whether it's intentional or unintentional. Uh, there seems to be a force that transcends both, that allow things to come in and go out of your, experience. And I think
Right.
it's similar to the thing that organized reality to such an extent that we have these classic associations of gods that have their numbers and their animals and their totems. And we have these astrological symbols that have their associations and their totems and their numbers. I feel like that the thing that allows for it to happen in my life is the same thing that allows for it to happen in, has allowed for it to happen throughout the ages.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I remember like early on there's a couple folks that were um some esoteric heads, and that they were saying that, like, synchromysticism was totally like a new hermetic art that was, dawning, and that, like, there was it was exciting for me to have an external um kind of like esoterically educated person come to our little world of things and be like, oh, this is exciting, and this is like super hermetic, and you know what I mean? And like it feels cool that we've with sync work, like it's like a very personal thing, like people that have engaged in sync blogging, it seems like everybody brings their own flavor to their gnosis and stuff. And like, you know, um, it kind of feels like the the act of like doing sync is really, it is like being an artist of your time, and kind of like, you know, every person can kind of create art out of like how they receive the world, you know what I mean? And like that's what all art is. But I found that through with synchromysticism, like there's a cool, like we said, very natural, very kind of like yogic union type thing to it that like seems to also actually just fit into like, pre-existing models maybe of reality for certain esoteric, things that like other folks aren't, like, we're not exactly even coming from a totally esoteric background, it's like it feels like the discussion of synchronicity is just a very like authentic one. It's like it's a mystery that goes beyond esotericism or even
yeah,
like new age. It's science too. It's a weird
I,
mystery.
I I agree completely. Like I think I use words like spiritual or mystical just as a sort of tool to say it's anti sort of the more mainstream views, but that doesn't mean
Mhm.
to me they are things that are separate from just how I perceive reality. This is like if I'm like just open about how I perceive and experience and don't have like barriers in place about what does or doesn't um, qualify as legitimate, then I feel like the reality I perceive and its rules are what I call my sort of understanding of existence and of um, the laws of my reality as I perceive them. It's not science, it's not spirituality, it's just what is given my perception and my openness to interpreting it without. I feel like reality is experience and perception without fear or and with humility. To me, those are the tools that allow you to perceive and experience, what, and then draw a sort of reality, make a reality out of those things. And you can call the laws science or you can call them spirituality. And I feel like all those systems have validity to them, to an extent. I have my own opinions about some of them, and how they fit into my experience. But by and large, I feel like my reality is sort of what I experience and how I interpret it, given just sort of an openness to allowing it to be. And I don't actually primarily, at the heart of it, consider that to be a science or a spirituality. It's just an isness that I, you know, experience and then use words and criteria and maps to try and best
Mhm.
convey. Also, it's sort of an assessment of what I think, who I'm talking to and what their map is, and like how I can convey what I'm saying, given what I think the person I'm communicating with or the people I'm communicating with, where they're at, like what reality do I think I'm talking to? And then what map do I use to convey my
Mhm.
reality to that map, and then there's this sort of a dynamic play between that. But I don't actually believe in science or in spirituality. I just believe in I am and existence and experience, and that's it. And I use
Mhm.
the words and the classifications to try and convey my meaning.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I think that's something deep about language and about, sync and communication and stuff that, it's a beautiful thing to circle that mystery, and I like that I completely agree with you that like I don't really identify with a science or even a spiritual distinction really about existence, like I think all dual consideration has its value, and consciousness and stuff, but but the isness, the I am, the pure, you know, isness of being, doesn't require the laws or the constitution of any particular map or model to be the predominant one, and
No, I
um
actually
yeah.
feel like they can be tools, but they can also be hindrances to experience. I
Mhm.
think you can limit and, narrow what you experience given these laws and these structures that you're using to perceive. And I feel like that the psychedelic experience is very much one of the, and sync as well, is, these things that suggest that there's a world beyond those criteria and maps and, any systems that we've developed. They're just tools for interpreting reality, but they're not reality, you know? And
Mhm.
certainly where I've landed is that I don't consider myself spiritual or rational or anything. I just consider
Mhm.
myself a being that witnesses and then experiences come and go within this witnessing presence, and that I will use information and concepts to try and convey my understanding of these experiences, and
Mhm.
that's about it, and it's funny because there's times of the day where I can't even think the way I'm thinking right now because it requires me to be in a car, going to my job, doing things that,
Mhm.
it requires the maps to be really tightly held onto of the normal consensus. And that's fine. It's like,
Mhm.
then I need those maps. They're useful. They fit the model of the mainstream. And, now I've closely holding on to them. I'm not There's parts of me that can be like laughing at some of the drama and the normalcy of life and, some of these things. But I'm still like, there's a sacred good reason for this. And right now I am normal Jake and my normal day-to-day thing, you know, as much as I can be because I'm a freak, but still there is a certain, amount of, it's family, it's job, it's normal society, and I get the rules and I know how to, fit into the game and I like it. It's not like a
Right.
show. It's like there's to me a profound reason for why things are the way they are and for society's norms and values and for, and there's definitely we can try and change them as well. That's part of it. To me, sync is very much part of that. It's like to me, it's like a
Mhm.
a gambit, a game, a thing to like say, well, this is something that I'm experiencing that's consistent, it's coherent. Here, you interpret. What do you draw out of these movies I make and these pieces of, connections that I'm talking about? Do you have a different interpretation? Is it better than mine? That's sort of the thing. It's like I'm not
Mhm.
trying to say reality is. I'm trying to say this is how I perceive these things, and this is the explanation for them, given my meditating on this for however, for whatever. But if I hear a better explanation, I'll incorporate that, and hopefully I have enough humility and integrity to be like, okay, if you have a better map for explaining reality, then I will be open to that, because it's actually thrilling to be living in reality, to be feeling
Mhm.
like you're perceiving clearly is thrilling. So that's what
Mhm.
I'm looking for. And to me, it's like the clearest that I can interpret reality is what I call sync, or at least the
Right.
aspect of it that I'm interested in is, to me, sync and synchronicity and synchromysticism. But I'm open and I want to understand reality, and this is the map that works the best for me and explains the events and the happenings the best. And I
Mhm.
feel like might even be better than the sort of rational consensus view for what these things are and how to interpret them, which is why I posit them. And I say, okay, that's why I will bother to, for 20 years, be talking about this stuff, because I feel like there's worth saying here. And this seems like you can write and talk and create and explain these things. But it's not to me a science and it's not to me a spiritual thing. It's just,
Mhm.
you know, an interpretation of existence.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. And like I love it's great to hear those kind of articulations about yeah, perception and being and like I like also the stuff that you mentioned too about like just how like normal life is so beautiful and is so even like us calling it normal is like we're moving away from how truly thrilling and amazing even normal Jake and Kev driving out through the day doing the errands and stuff like that
Yeah.
still is a totally incredible part of the
Oh man.
mystery
Yeah.
we're encountering like so many
Oh
cosmic everything it's like with that clear
yeah.
perception you can
Yeah.
behold every part of your day as like a holy it's just, a holy conversation with your larger self and like the goddess whatever you want to call it and like it's yeah, to me it sync awareness opens up that the beauty of quote unquote mundane, and I think to re-enchant ourselves from a world that was kind of disenchanted by, materialism and rationalism and science, like I think it is kind of the role of artists to kind of sustain that enchantment, you know what I mean? Because there's like materialist, people with materialist passions in the world pushing those around, and so it's like to me, it's just like to live a beautiful life is to yeah, is to live in that dance with the mystery and to produce art that celebrates it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally. And yeah, yeah, I totally resonate and agree with what you're saying. That
I had
feels
a
uh yeah. It's just that sense as well that I think as a teenager, like normal life seemed like a bummer or like a imposition, or like there's a wrongness to it. And now, I perceive aspects of it that's terrible and that's
Mhm.
unfair and that's horrible, but there's also an aspect of it that's, I know that the holiness or the profoundness of existence is present in every aspect of it. So
Mhm.
there's not a sort of a condemnation to me of the normal world and the normal life. There's a mystery to me in why it is the way it is, and there's sort of an animating force there. It makes the things that I don't like about it, I feel like can change. It can
Right.
be healed, and
Mhm.
there's a faith in that and a knowing that and part of it is like embracing it is saying that I believe that. I believe that there's the same thing at the core of this moment is in the core of every moment. That to me is sort of a legitimate sort of insight about existence, is that the core of existence is the same in every aspect of it. Like no matter what
Mhm.
is veiled over that, been encrusted over the experience, its core must be the heart of this moment, which is the heart of me and the heart of everything. The heart that transcends everything must be at the core of every time and place. So knowing that, it's to me a mystery why there's so much ne necrotic and disease in normal life, and like how to heal that. There must be ways. And I feel like having faith in that and knowing that and living a normal life, I think then it's weird. It's kind of like it structures just the sort of knowingness of being sort of structures your life in a way where it feels like it's organically self-organized to be you are playing your role in the great ritual of reality itself going through its own transformation and healing, or society and culture, how it is just like I have gone through my own kind of like, you know, journey of awakening. It seems like the planet and culture and species and that those there's other fractals of, ritualistic drama. And I feel like as you become aware of those forces and about the core beingness beyond it all, it's kind of like you start to play your role in the great unveiling, and just
Mhm.
organically for me, it's like sync becomes part of that, where it's like this to me is a way of supporting and being part of an awakening process. It sounds like such a cliche, but I do
Right.
feel like there's this internet is still part of this evolutionary process. I feel like we lose sight of it because, there's this sudden materialism backlash, fascist force coming into reality, and it feels like everything is like materialism and tech. There's sort of powerful backlash against spirituality, if you want to call it that at this point. And I feel like that to me is almost like a sign that we're so on track, that
Mhm.
we're going through this transformation. We have been there's these different fractals of this spiritual evolution, and you just slot into it without even trying if you become aware of these aspects of existence. And then it's like even when you're in your day-to-day life and you're doing your job and you're doing the hustle that you need to pay the bills, and do the chores of the day that need to be done, they have their connection somehow to the great
Mhm.
eschaton or whatever it is, even if it's, you know, totally normal day. There's a part of you that knows it's like, I'm doing what I need to do to liberate myself and humanity. It's weird.
Exactly.
Like,
It's really
and
true.
it's driving this car to work, you know, or
Yep.
it's you know, walking through the mall and looking for shoes. You know, it, it, it it's funny, and maybe it's not even this great dramatic, I'm like some secret agent in league with the Illuminati to help enlighten the world or something. You can call it that, but you can just call it existence, isness of I blink. So my eye closes and it opens. That's a sacred movie. And the enlightenment of the world is just another fractal of blinking. And, you can say that I'm part of this role to help that happen, or you can just say a heart beats and that's a normal process. And, reality goes through these phases and that's a normal process. It's like whatever, you can use so many different ways of talking about it.
Right, right. I love that. Yeah, and I appreciate those like those simple metaphors too, because it's like it really is, you can like we've done, you can talk, you can spin yarn for a long time around something that's actually just very silent, simple, and as simple as a heartbeat or a blinking eye, you know what I mean? Like, and so I think it's great to, while we discuss these big things, it's also bringing it right back to the simple I am, heartbeat thing is a great it's a great, way to undulate around the thing, and I think something I've been thinking about too is how like for me this year I've been having this feeling, this calling to like start this podcast and got like a little spiritual study group we have like twice a month in New Paltz around here and meeting a lot of like lovely new people after having kind of just like opened up the space for that and like it with this podcast being the same kind of thing, just like hoping to open up, space for more of these kind of dialogues and for just more fascination and joy and stuff. But like the vibe of the if you build it, they will come thing, I had a whole bunch of funny sync with it. Um because there's like it has to do with that kind of like the faith and gnosis thing. Like I know like in the movie Field of Dreams, I believe that's the if you build it, they will come, right? That's like
Yeah. Yeah.
and I gotta rewatch it because there's been
Yeah.
something about that that I'm syncing with personally right now, and the field is a big one that in Gemini it's featured on the Rider Waite card. You can see Adam and Eve coming together, and there's this mound and there's this great angel that's bringing Adam and Eve together. And it's like I believe it's like commonly known as the angel of the Lord or something or but this idea of the great field and like how like every spring like life opens up like kind of like a fertile field of like new connections and Gemini is really that time like like the plants start popping and people usually like try to have their weddings around this time before it's like too hot or there's a sign of coming together that Gemini resonates strongly with, and the field is the field of awareness. It's like the field of the land, which is the body of the goddess, the body of God, whatever you want to call it. And like so I've been having these syncs lately because the city Kingston where I live is used to be known as the Great Field to the first people here. And I've been reconnecting with these like wonderful ancient stone mysteries here that are like um megalithic stone structures that are like kind of unprotected and left off to the side. So I'm going to be doing some cool work to try to bring some awareness to the story of Turtle Island and some of um the beautiful historic stuff that we have around here that still is yet to be protected, and that story has to be healed. And but so anyway, I've been meeting some beautiful people along the way as like that calling has opened up to me for these stones and to reconnect the Turtle Island, consciousness with history, and that is like really important, like anchoring in not just one narrative of time or a dominator culture or whatever, and but anyway, that yeah, there's been a beautiful presence in my life of that if you build it, they will come thing of how like having a little bit of that faith in your own gnosis and your heart, and building something or making something out of love and service and offering and invitation, like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's something beautiful about doing that, and I've just been like in sync with that, and it has a that guiding force. I just feel like that's kind of a sync thing, like try to pull up the tarot card of my deck here, but um Mercury, that connector, like Hermes, there's just so much
Yeah.
that Gemini encodes, the beauty of this connection stuff. I wanted to
Yeah, it's
see also, I thought
interesting
it
you
was
mentioned a
okay.
Kevin Costner movie because I was literally thinking about making like a because I make these boards right now. I'm like sort of
Mhm.
a little bit into like I want to make physical things, not just videos. So and often I
Mhm.
feel like the last three things I posted were kind of like a video about the physical thing. So I feel like then
Mhm.
uh it's kind of both. It's part to me like but anyway, so the boards, I was thinking about this new board that I want to make maybe with Kevin Costner
Funny, of
because
course.
yeah, this it's an old sync, but I'm trying to find examples of in some cases I want to make out of existing collectibles or objects entire sync boards. So I don't want to like
Mhm.
some cases I'm happy to print out the poster and the scene from the movie and attach it and maybe with an object that furthers the sync or is a totem of the sync. But in
Hmm.
some cases, I feel like it'd be really neat to be able to like say, here's a trading card. Here's a like I recently purchased three trading cards. I think they might have arrived while I was talking to you. I had the doorbell ring and ran off for a second just before we started recording. And I feel like the postman was here with some of the cards that I need for like this Jim Carrey green. So I've got like a trading card with the Mask, a trading card with the Riddler, and a trading card with the Grinch, you know. So
That's awesome. Yeah.
pre-existing media. You could also like use maybe the DVD covers of these movies or something, and then you can put those on a three-dimensional object that like shows the synchronicity. Just because I feel like to me the objects that come out of movies and the merchandising, that's part of it. That's, you know, totems. There's just this whole other realm I feel like of sync that I'm exploring with physical things. And I was thinking of, you know, so I'm looking for examples where there would be objects that would show these things. And I was thinking about Kevin Costner being in the Superman Man of Steel movie where he is
Hmm.
Superman's dad. And
Oh,
there,
interesting.
there's a trading card for that, like Superman's dad and Kevin Costner. And I was like, great. And then I was like, well, would there be one for Russell Crowe, who's also his dad, but his space alien dad from earlier on in the same movie? And I was like, okay, so that's Russell Crowe,
Mm.
but there is a trading card for that. And I was like, well, is there a trading card for uh, Robin Hood? Because they're both Robin Hood. So that's just to me like there's this little
Oh,
cluster.
cool.
You know, both Superman's dads are also Robin Hood in different versions of
Wow.
Robin Hood. So just this little sync thing, and I'm like, oh, you can make a little
Mhm.
board, you can stick them all on there. It's like, but I haven't found a trading card for the Russell Crowe Robin Hood. But there are stamps, like in Australia, because they commemorate
Mhm.
Russell Crowe, and there's like little Robin Hood stamps. But anyways, I'm looking for like examples of objects where you can create the whole sync out of like pre-existing
Okay.
found objects, you know,
That's
just
so cool. Yeah.
one, because it's a challenge, and two, just because I think it will be neat to show, oh, look, these objects, you can put them all together, and here's a sync in three dimensions. Um, and that was, you know, involved Kevin Costner. So I was literally thinking about Kevin Costner movies and Dances with Wolves. I was thinking about his movie with, you know, there was this connection with Wolverine. I would have to
Oh,
even go
yeah.
these
And then
posters.
got the Wolf Flow connection with the moon on Field of Dreams, very like, and then Waterworld, he's
Oh
the,
man, that
water, the
poster.
lunar.
Yes, water
Yeah.
flow. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so anyway, I was just on a Kevin Costner kick, so it's just weird to me. I wasn't even thinking of Field of Dreams, but that's like, you know, obviously one of the most relevant Costner movies. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely like it stood out to me in my childhood, and it's there's something to it. I'm making a new video for Gemini, toying with a couple names. I was thinking about, I don't know, did you ever, I was afraid that this might have been, it's funny about how our brains work so similar. I was like, oh, I hope Jake didn't make that video already. But did you ever make a video called Gemini, or like, because that's what I thought to make was a video called Gemini about Jim Carrey and his like stuff. But I was like, I hope, did Jake do that yet? Okay, cool.
No,
So,
but I sometimes I can't I can't always remember, and I feel like I've gotten in trouble before for this exact same reason, where you know you come up with a sync, and then it's either somebody else has already come up with that sync, and then you put it out, and they're like upset, you know, you're stealing my sync, you
yes.
know, and I'm like, kind of, well, I don't even know. Maybe I did see that sync, maybe I didn't. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's like we
Does it
all have
exist?
one mind anyway,
We have one mind
yeah.
anyway, and it's also kind of weird because these associations do exist, you know. I notice it, you notice it. Do I own it then? That's, you know,
Right,
the
right.
sync stuff. If you're inspired by someone's work and you want to you know, give them some props, you can say, hey, I got a lot of inspiration from Kevin for this video. That's polite, that's nice, you know, go for it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but the idea that a sync is owned by me and I you can't share it without saying, "Oh, this Jake was the first person to notice that." I don't know if I was, you know, and
Right,
I
right.
will even think of syncs, and It's been doing this for 20 years. There's honestly, I will sometimes be like, "Have I shared this before? Have I noticed this before? Have I noticed that and made a
Right.
post about it or not? Like, is it?" I'll rewatch sync videos and I'll be like, "Oh my goodness, that." I've forgotten about that. Like, I was watching a video that we made a while ago. We did like one of those with Jennifer. We made like a
Yeah,
recording. Uh, always, what was it called? I forget
yeah,
the
always record
series of,
maybe.
yeah, always record, I believe. Um, there was a whole series of these videos that I made, and when I was watching that, there were so many things that we were talking about and sharing that I was like kind of having my mind blown by, and I was like, know, I would, there were phases of my life where I would do this all day, every day, nonstop, you know. There's
Right, right.
things that I have forgotten. I can't remember.
Mhm.
I watch my own videos sometimes and I'm like, holy crap, I don't remember that clearly, you know.
Yeah,
It's just, there's so much
it's
volume of
amazing.
associations. So, you know, I don't believe I've made that joke, but
Yeah,
I
yeah, like
certainly,
because the Gemini thing, it came so easy, and I was like, oh, I almost feel like that could have been a post from Jake or something. I don't know, but anyway, it'll be a video I'm dropping, hopefully in a day or two or something. But it's cool. It's unveiling a lot of fun sync and that Field of Dreams thing with like um the field being a thing, because then you go to like signs and the field is a big thing, and then you go to like what's the other one? Angels in the Outfield. And
yeah,
there's like Christopher Lloyd. The Angels in
yeah,
the Outfield movie cover has looks so much like this card in some ways for the lovers. That's like the on the original Rider Waite, it's like Adam and Eve with the like, I think it's Flaming Angel Michael or something. But in this, it's like Mercury, this like I think it's like the Hermit from the Hermit card as
yeah.
Mercury kind of marrying sulfur and salt here. But in the Angels in the Outfield, Christopher Lloyd is like very much the Mercury. He does like even this very like gesture. It's kind of interesting. And so I'm
Huh.
doing this video that kind of like plays with the field and like um how the field comes up a lot with the aliens, angels, like the just that mystery, and how
Yeah.
Gemini and Mercury seem to fit into this angel alien thing is it's coming up in my video. I'm still kind of articulating it, but
Have you seen the newer? There's a new Disclosure Day. Well, you can just watch the trailer; it's in there. But
yeah.
there's crop circles in the fields in Disclosure Day,
Mm,
Steven Spielberg movie. There's a poster as
yeah, I
well
haven't seen
uh,
it. Ooh, okay, cool. I gotta like put that
of
in the
the
sync web.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it seems the crop circle is coming up again in a big movie. You know, I'm curious to
Right.
see if that will be a good movie. We'll see. But either way, it'll be fascinating, I'm sure, for sync stuff, you know.
Yeah, and then you used to have like a fascination with crop circles back in the day, right? I kind of remember your earliest stuff. Like there was a photo of you in a crop circle or something. I remember.
Yeah, so early sync stuff, I feel like I might have been making videos already, probably, but when I was blogging, for sure, like sort of my
Mm.
earliest blog blogs involved crop circles. I used to be pretty into like, you know, keeping track of like the season, and I would like look at the even making some sort of here and there like associations between world events and crop circle happening and alignments of dates and things, you know, was sort of a thing. You know, I
Hmm.
guess, you know, it would somewhat be inspired like Goro Adachi was like a early inspiration, and he would incorporate crop circles,
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
you know, specific days, having specific, you know, time of the year, like maybe days on the wheel of the year on the
Yeah, I remember that.
quarters and the cross quarters, and then alignments of crop circles happening. So that, but there is definitely
Those are
fascinating
fascinating.
connections
Yeah.
between, you know, crop circles, timing, but like any system, really, that if you wanted to map it,
Mhm.
will show synchronicities is kind of what I've learned over the years for sure. But yeah, there
Right.
was definitely a fascination with crop circles. And I feel like, you know, when I went to go see the crop circles in England, because blogging about them, a person contacted me who lives in England and said, if I can make it to England, they will show me around. They will take me to the crop circles. You know, they have a vehicle. And at that point, it was a very tricky thing for me to get to England and to, get a place to stay. And this person said, we'd been communicating back and forth on the blogs for a year or so, and they were like, come to England, I'll show you the crop circles, and you can stay at my place and all this kind of stuff. So I went, and it was during that time period when Jim Saunders contacted me for the first time. And I was having these
Uh,
really interesting, profound sort of synchronicities and events. It was actually,
hmm
sort of really sort of formative uh, to who I became, kind of thing, experiences while looking
hmm
at crop circles.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so, whether real or not, the alchemy of being involved with the crop circles, and for me, it's always kind of been, to me, there's sort of a mystery about, the plants. This is happening in
hmm
a field of plants, and how that to me was part of the mystery of, you know, Jim, who is this ayahuasquero who I befriended, and then I've been through, decades of ceremony because of that. This was happening
hmm
right during a trip to England to go see the crop circles, is the first time he contacted me. And there was like literal like synchronicity of like, I was lying in a tent and a voice was talking to me about, you will be contacted and you will be put on a new part of your journey. It was like a conversation, a holy guardian angel esque kind of moment. And there was
Wow.
literally the next day when Jim contacted me and said, he's seen my stuff online and we should do ceremony and that kind of thing. So, you know, the
Wow.
the crop circles did for sure have a profound. I feel like in at these times, it's been a while since I've been, into that culture and studying that stuff, but uh, for sure it play a big role in my, you know, synchronicities in my early formative world. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, there's something magical afoot with that stuff, like, those early fascinations and how they fit into like our current, you know, place, I think with like sharing sync and as artists and stuff. And yeah, for me, like there's been a really special thing opening up as I've been working on this book about the Hudson Valley where I live. um, I started writing a book about sync, actually. I was writing my book Chasing Rabbits, and then my Hudson Valley chapter just kind of like uh, you know, um got so long. I was like, oh, this is a book. This is like I'm learning so much magical stuff. And it became clear that I'm drawn now to finishing this book that's about the Hudson Valley. And maybe it'll be even more of a series, but it's one of the really big synchronicities for me though lately that I've been having. And it kind of connects to like when I came and visited you in Canada when we went to the Manitowoc Abbey, the creator's chair, I think it's called, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um,
Those
and there's a
petroforms, these sacred formations,
Yeah, there's
yeah,
something
of
so special
mysterious
about
origin.
what's that?
I guess, obviously the indigenous people um, generally considered the makers of those circles, but, some of those go into vast, antiquity and, the intentionality and cultures who made those. It's mysterious.
Right. Yeah, yeah. That's a beautiful mystery to get there to go. Um, when we did ceremony out there in Winnipeg in 2010 and spent the next day at that site, and it was a really beautiful thing for me. And I'm beginning to realize that like visiting that site and connecting with those stones there that day was, part of a longer sync journey that, I'm still on that. Like, it's been amazing to get to this part of the journey where like, connecting with these in stone structures, these other like, we don't know the date on these because they've been, kind of just like ignored. And they're literally like this Kingston megalith I was just visiting yesterday is it's in the parking lot of it's called Kingston Business Park, whatever. But uh I might have leave that part out. But it's in a parking lot and it's just like 20 feet from a curb, and it's these megaliths, these like incredible big stones. and um, they face, the north, south, east, and west. You can see a little bit in the book here. It's not a great shot, but these structures here, it's like a beautiful calendar stone compass, just like Stonehenge, like I've been calling it
Yeah,
Kingston hens now. And this thing is just, mysteriously sitting in a parking lot in the woods, and like I
that's
want to try
great.
to do some work to, yeah, I want to try to help do some work to protect it. And I'm gonna be doing some events this summer, bringing education around it. But it's just really fascinating because I've been going through some pretty deep sync as I've connected with these indigenous stoneworks in this area, and how it connects to this bigger story of Turtle Island and America, and like the Masonic great experiment here. And there's a lot of really new fascinating stuff coming out from the Templars, actually, who have just like disclosed all this stuff about their relationship with the first people here over many, a long time. And so it's been fascinating for me. But what I loved about it is that like this place is like my new centering zone here. Like these spaces where like humans come to center. I feel like there's something important about like connecting to those places. Like for me, it's also in my living room here where I do my like meditations daily and adore the sun and whatever. But there's something about these centering places and this. I've been really thinking with this symbol that it's like the sort of like the X or the bullseye, and this is made by the solstices and equinox sunrises and stuff like that. If you're looking for alignments in the year, but I just love this the quaternity, that cross in the circle is
Yeah.
it's a big symbol, and it was dawning on me a lot of sync during Taurus um surrounding that cross. But that was the newest crop circle I saw, actually. It just dropped like the first one of the spring, maybe, was a quaternity crop circle. And it was like, of course, right when I was giving workshops on the quaternity and the magic circle, and in Disclosure World they're like talking about how um some of these ET or UAP phenomenon they're saying could be like made from magic circles and extra to like out of body travel. Who knows that what that stuff's about? But the symbol of the circle and the cross has been a big cool sync for me that kind of like popped a lot during Taurus, this bullseye type thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I just thought it'd be worth mentioning. It just feels really wild that like for me right now, like outside of reconnecting with you and having our sync chats, like I'm here connecting outside of these conversations with these like stones, which was like, 20, not 20 years ago, like 16 years ago, you and I were hanging out at some really ancient stones together, and kind of beholding this Turtle Island mystery, you know what I mean? And um, there's something to me about all this. I don't know, it'll probably become more and more clear as, time passes, and I don't know, but
yeah.
I'm really drawn to connect with this stone legacy stuff, and kind of I hope my book helps kind of re-enchant the land a bit, you know what I mean? And it just feels cool that there's a little connection to even you and I having, for one reason or another, haven't been drawn to these ancient stones at one time, and um
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like the pyramids, talking about stones,
Mhm.
I feel like even before sync, I think the mystery of the pyramids have been sort of a strange attractor for what puts me very much on the path. And it's like, like for a while, and it's something that I hope to continue at some point. I was like I want to write a book. And for me, the main thing was to like write about the eye in the triangle and the dollar bill,
Mhm.
and its relationship to synchronicity, and also, a little bit of the history of how did it end up on the back of the dollar bill? What does it mean? And, a little bit about Crowley, his use of it and that kind of thing. So I was doing lots of research and meditating on that specific symbol. And then to me, the primary idea of really how that's like a capstone on the pyramid kind of thing, and just how key the pyramid is to the symbol of the eye and the triangle, and this sort of Probably the primary like symbol in my life, the eye in the triangle, and
Mm,
Robert Anton Wilson and his use in this introduction to the Illuminati and that kind of stuff. That symbol and its relationship to the Great Pyramid and awakening, you know, just a whole thing on its own, that
right.
uh and then as you're talking about like the crop circles and the stones, and it comes back to this earlier question of intentionality and just how, whether it's humans, whether it's um, man-made or not man-made, I feel like often that's sort of the area where people are interested. But for me, it's like beyond that, there's sort of
Mhm.
that it is, and it is saying something regardless of who or what made it. It's the same as I feel like crop circles. For me, it's not, it's far beyond at this point, like, are they man-made or not? It's like, and even if they are, I've had this thought a lot where I'm like,
Mhm.
maybe the archetypal forces are using pranksters to make the design
Right,
that then is this
right.
reflection of this thing. Or maybe the infinite is so much in everything that even when the pranksters make it and then you bring your, you know, awareness to this symbol, which is as man-made as the things that I investigate through sync. It's not, these movies are man-made and yet they're blowing my mind. These you know,
Right,
I'm seeing things in them that transcend the artists that make them, and I'm
right.
seeing relationships about my own existence that transcends time and space, So it really is sort of this issue of who or what makes these things interesting, part of the story, sure. But being like a defining thing of whether this is an interesting thing or not, or something worth investigating, or something worth, or that being the key is not to me, you know, where I rest. It's more like, it's like 9/11. Like I don't, the idea of whether it was, an inside job or whether it was this, that has nothing to do with it. It's the symbolism. It's the fact that
Mhm.
it happened. It's the, it's the connections. It's the sync. It's not about the surface level thing of who did it,
Mhm.
or that argument just seems, that's so superficial to me,
Yeah.
The same with crop circles in a way. It's like this idea of, is it man, or is it just some sort of natural phenomenon, or is it, that is interesting, but it's not to me where I land as far as like what is its relevance. It's like the relationship between the object and my life, that becomes far more interesting, in how it interacts with like this process of insight and learning. And it's really fast, those kinds of things fascinating me. And I feel like the pyramid and the stones are often like the same sort of kind of portals into these mysteries, just relationships between things that tell you more about existence.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool. I like that. And before we were talking about you were talking about about how we were talking about the quote unquote mundane life and how, you know, normal parts of our day are just as rich and important and part of the ritual and all that. I did want to mention that there was a cool thing for me over time that like with sync and with my, spirituality or whatever, like I do relate to the earth and the phenomenon of life as like my interaction with like this goddess, like this the universe as, even in the tarot, the universe card is pictured as this dancing goddess, and so and I think, like all of us in life are dancing with life, dancing with the goddess if you want to look at it in a poetic way or whatever. And um for me, there's been an interesting thing with sync that, particularly with like Mott and 42, that was really fascinating, which was that like in earlier life, I've been following the 42 in all these different ways and resonating with, gnosis from all different angles of the object, but one of the interesting things was that like Mott as like she represents the fabric of like reality, like she kind of in the Egyptian worldview would represent the fabric of space time and like society, and that's why like in Egyptian society, it was even broken up into like 42, I forget what they were called, maybe gnomes or something like that. And so, but there's been an interesting thing for me with like falling into sync and syncing with Mott of like you were saying before, just like how it's like being a totally normal, happy part of society is like to me that's been like my like reintegration into like the Mott awareness in a really full way, of like um with sync and stepping outside of the ego and zooming out, the 42 has been syncing me with Mott and then syncing me with this concept of like, cosmic citizenry and like that story I was talking about before with how this all connects to like Turtle Island and America and borders and like boundaries dissolving, um there's something about like Mott to me and about the goddess that like um sync has like landed me in this I don't know how to put it, but like a form of like integrated mystical awareness and participation in society as like a holy dance. You know what I mean? And like I did want to like in our conversation today, like just share that little bit of where I've kind of come to in my personal trip, like with blending my spirituality or the poetic life with the quote unquote mundane stuff. There's been like a beautiful falling in or sinking into place, into this like cosmic order, that Mott represents to me. That like, um, yeah, it's just been interesting. There's been a cool little transformation for me over the many years of being an artist and going through like different forms of expression and stuff. And like, like years ago, I was doing like a punk band where like rock was a lot of my energy and my aura, and I was like rocking it out or whatever. But then there's this with sync and with my writing and with this podcast and other stuff, like there's another beautiful kind of like cosmic citizenry through the 42 thing that kind of opens up. That's been for me just an interesting lane of how this 42 and Mott and things like um sink back into regular life, you know what I mean? And the idea of like Mott, she represents like law, like cosmic law, yeah, just interesting for me as like a punk rocker and all that kind of stuff, like sync even fitting into an integration of even myself into the larger society, the mythic plane of life in the collective, and so yeah, it's just been a little healing journey of my own to that I just wanted to kind of share as we were talking about um how sync, it can start with all the big high strangeness and the big events and stuff like that, but it smooths into a dance of life, a yoga and a form of like, yeah, cosmic citizenry for me. Like I don't know how quite to put it, but it's like a dawning sense over time for me, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And living in sync feels like, like living in your truth and um yeah, there's like something to that like that feeling of understanding sync and addressing it in your daily life, knowing that like when you're stuck in a traffic light that like, maybe being stuck there for that extra 2 minutes, that's really frustrating. It's what's keeping you from an accident that could happen, a block away, or, like there's like little things that sync can like heal the places in life when even the mundane feels like uh, you know, pointless or overwhelming or whatever, like
yes.
my life has been rather re-enchanted, to the fullest through this yoga of sync, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
The mundane and the pressures of the daily life and its sacredness is, I think, so key to, being a sane human being, because I feel like it's kind of like not being totally hypnotized by the hardness of reality or not being completely identified with the narrative that you're in. There's a part of you, and I feel like there's a dance of like, um, you can be aware that it is there and you're participating and you're in it, and your awareness is not shying away from it. You're kind of like you're deep in it. You're in a way sort of like, and it's weird. It's like being a little bit detached from it, as in aware that it's part of a drama, kind of allows me to not be super afraid and resistant. So it's kind of like I lean into
Mhm.
it. It's kind of like, okay, the requirements of this moment is
Mhm.
these chores, this, so lean into it. It's not going to consume me and devour me. It's kind of just a
Mhm.
game. It's kind of just this beautiful dance. And
Yeah.
it wants to happen. It's happening. The entire
Mhm.
cosmos is making it happen, this traffic jam I'm in. So let me get into it. Like maybe there's things to observe. Maybe there's something, a podcast on. Maybe there's uh, billboards going by that have meaning or pattern or something. I just feel like there's a reason for the moment, and I start to like not be afraid or resistant, and I just allow it. And it's weird. Then even the most mundane thing becomes, there's a certain magic to it, and you can kind of
Mhm.
just go for it. And it's weird how being aware of its irreality sort of makes it more, you want to immerse in it, and you want to kind of like get involved in it and allow it to be. So it's
Mhm.
because somehow it's both. It's both the veil, and it's also the sacred, beautiful mask in its most like, you can feel your heart has chosen it to be this shape right now. And
Mhm.
even if you're not sitting there like thinking of it in this profound way, there's a part of you that sort of knows these things on a deep level. And it's just weird to me how, the day to day is not mundane. And even if it's mundane, it doesn't mean it's meaningless. And at the same time, also this thing that you describe where it doesn't have to be profoundly weird, it doesn't have to be deeply mysterious. And maybe it's age as well, where I feel I'm at a point in my life where I don't need or want, like confusing, discombobulating mystery around me all the time. And
Mhm.
I'm not searching that out. I feel like I'm open to it, and I kind of am fascinated by all kinds of mysteries and things, but it's not like I need mind-blowing strangeness to be connected to divinity and to be connected to magic. It's like I can be
Mhm.
connected to the traffic jam, and it's kind of like doesn't even have to be weird or interesting or have to have synchronicities at that point. It can just be a traffic jam.
Right.
And like this
Right.
is, and
Right. Right.
this is some weird sacred expression of existence. And it's a boring traffic jam. Cool. And
Right.
but I feel like it helps because I feel like time and tide will come and change, and later it'll be like some intense, weird experience, and then there'll be a part of you that can accept that too. It's kind of like the
Mhm.
the ability to like say yes to the mundane is similar to the ability to say yes to the discombobulating, the confusing, and the humbling. I feel like it's the same muscle. And it's important to be able to fluctuate between those and to be present, in the, moments that require a lot of surrender and, you know, uh, like if I did ayahuasca today and it was super strong and intense, that sort of uh, let go, be present, meditate on the primary thing becomes the same thing that you exercise in the traffic jam. It's like let go, be aware of the primary thing. It's weird. There's the same thing mechanic is at work that makes both those, sort of moments that are embraced.
Totally. Yeah. And it feels like that's where like, like you said, like not really needing to like constantly have the mind-blowing revelation relationship to life or to daily life even, but to, just allow that awareness of life to like yeah, allow us to not be attached, when like perceived obstacles arise and stuff, and like um there's I think a beauty to like the um the way that like even in our own lives, like I've had, stuff where like I'll be throwing an event or something, and even in the event promo, I'll use like some art and I'll kind of have like a sync to where I realized that like my deeper mind was like even like at work deeper when I was creating like an event flyer even or something. And like I didn't realize until 2 days later, like, oh wow, I accidentally gave a workshop on the pentagram on 5/5. And like, well, that's silly, like it's so strange that an esoteric person like me didn't even think about how I lined up that thing on the calendar without it. And
Yes.
so there's a beautiful, cool thing too to how like even with our own relationship to ourselves, like um there's this like whatever you call it, the higher self, the deep true self, whatever that is always kind of gently guiding or at work no matter what. And like, you know, to not even to not become like a junkie for revelation, to just know that like the average flow of things is also kind of still you're still actually in conversation with your own like deepest self and
Yeah.
like the universe, whatever you want to call it. And so like to me there's like a I feel like there's like I forget in mysticism there's maybe I think they call it the smooth point or something, or there's I forget, it's like maybe a meditation term, but so where basically like enough contemplation kind of like rounds out to a smooth point or whatever in it. And it feels to me that there's like with sync awareness, that we were talking about before, like just the peace and the tranquility and the that acceptance, um, that like there's just to me that smooth point of sync awareness has been like a pleasant place to arrive at in life for me at least, because I remember when I was younger and a little more of that awe junkie or whatever, it's pleasantly smoothed out, even though I still do love my, exciting revelation from time to time or whatever, but yeah.
You don't need that in order for you to have some sort of uh rest in peace, you know? It's almost,
Right.
yeah, it's like I feel like I try to keep reminding myself what is the truest aspect of this moment, you know? And I feel like in any context, whether it's like something mind-blowing and intense or something very mundane and ordinary, the truest aspect of that moment is going to be the same point. It's going to be the same thing. There's something that's allowing both those polarities. And I feel like when you're young or maybe you're starting your journey, the intense freak out psychedelic sort of experience is sort of the one that, shows you uh, something beyond yourself. But I feel like more and more you find that in every moment, whether it's an intense situation or a weird situation or a normal and mundane situation, more and more the core essence of your being, which I think is very much, if you watch like a narrative about the Buddha or something that, finding that common space in every scenario and then resting in that and holding on to that, yeah, I feel like it's very much the goal. And it's also
Hmm.
kind of the reminder, I think, of sync to me is like is also that point. It's like, what is the truest thing of reality? And it's almost like sync is constantly reminding me of that as well. It's kind of like what is the truest aspect of reality so that I'm not hypnotized by all these ideas and thoughts and aspects and journeys and things. It's like there's beautiful narratives that I believe in, that I'm participating in, that I think that is journeys. Journeys are important. We're going through a journey as an individual, as a culture, as a society, and there's a narrative quality to it, and that's all great. But then I feel like the thing that keeps that healthy is the eye on the center of it all, the thing that transcends it all, and that creates it all. That sort of the I am,
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
and to me, if you can organize your yoga, which we're saying is like sync is our yoga, or to be a thing that keeps looping you back to the core of being and the most truest essential thing of every context, then you're in a good place because then your daily practice, which is constantly making you go, aha, aha,
Hmm.
and all these far out or mundane situations, there's these constant micro journeys back to the center, and I find the same with anxiety. Like when I'm in situations that cause me anxiety, there's always something like, what is this? And then there's a journey, and then I'll at some point go, aha, I'm back at the center. Even anxiety becomes part of an animating journey that quickly loops back. For me, I feel like the work has been to have things set up so that they're constantly somehow reminding you of the essentialness of your being and the core of experience. And I find sync to me is ultimately that reminder. And anything you can actually make things themselves, or just like we were talking about Gemini in the beginning, the fact that there's
Mhm.
a me, an experiencer, and a world can become a clue as to, oh my goodness, but there's this one transcendent thing. There's the two that allows for the awareness of the one. And existence itself can become like a reminder that there is something transcendent and eternal and a peaceful core to the whole thing. And I feel like then, you've got a pretty ideal scenario when, you've set it up so that existence is a reminder of being, you know, and all these other subplots to me are as well, a reminder of this common uh truth to every moment, regardless its character, you know.
I really love that. Yeah, that's to me that is so perfect. Like to like we were saying before, like how simple it can really be that like, stuff like the heartbeat or the blinking of the eye or, like witnessing consciousness, and like you were just saying there that there's like you know, there's something just like simple to it that like um makes the practice of it consistently like holistic and like not requiring of any great science or infrastructure, you know what I mean? Like it's to
Yeah.
me like I'm happy to be opening this kind of discussion up, because to me as a person who has practiced yoga for a long time in different ways, like just for bodily health and some mental stuff and like um having a thinking practice. The mind can be a thing, especially like in daily life, like anxiety and all these other things, like the mind can get in the
Yeah.
way. And so I like that, like, sync consciousness and the way that we're kind of trying to help articulate it is it allows for like simple, holistic, kind of return to the center, like instead of like, oh gosh, this is so cosmic and far out and it connects to, like there's like that side of it is
Yeah.
the ahas and whatever can be great, but I think it's great to like to talk about and make a little space for that simple and just very yeah, simple piece,
Yeah, and I mean I don't mind elaborate. Like I
Mhm.
guess I love elaborate when the ultimate goal is still to loop you back, to the center, because there's
Right.
like that's art to me, is to like creatively say the same thing, uh,
Yeah.
or to, decorate and put all kinds of like exciting, like to have an exciting journey to back to the center. Is to me the best narratives to me are like the ones that tell that kind of story, and it is kind of the hero's story, this sort of archetypal stories, is that story just told in a, like a exciting and relatable way. And I feel like uh to me, like a story that tells the same thing but does it in an exciting way is captivating, um but I don't think it has to, simple is great for me, but it doesn't have to be simple. It can be complicated, but I feel like for me, the stories that I resonate with are the ones that, you know, end up with, that narrative of awakening.
Hmm. Yeah, that's cool. And I just made me reflect a little bit on, like my handle, Indras Net for many years. Like, um, it's even like the logo of the show somewhere, but it's, this jeweled net this jeweled net that the god Indra casts through the universe, and so that all things in the universe reflect. It's like to me like a really early, beautiful Eastern concept of sync. And so the story of Indra and Indra's net is a beautiful one that I've resonated with, and it helps me generate my mythos of life. It's shows to me some of like my nature to explore, and like the fact that I chose that handle and it's really stuck. But later in life, I've only really just dove into it. It's kind of interesting. Like I didn't know that like Indra um use this cool, I don't know, like spirit spear thing or something that he has, but there's this great dragon that like it kind of like, always the great dragon kind of resonates with this ego thing and this like materialist kind of tendency that can usurp the spirit or something or so I just found out that like Indra has this cool, role in the Eastern stories of like um using this spirit spear to like slay this great dragon and release the waters from the heavens so that like um that the rain and life and like nourishment happens and whatever. So to me I just had this beautiful thought about like Indra and Sync and about how like for me like piercing the veil of daily life like the dragon of daily life so that like like sync consciousness or just like the meaning and beauty of life can come through. For me, it was just interesting. I didn't know that Indra had this like
Yeah.
um other side, like with the dragon so much. I just liked the whole web thing for a long time. But to
Well,
me, there was a beautiful little thing, and even realizing my own handle has like some fun mythic, quality that I've been enjoying cracking into a little bit.
I'll say one thing about the dragon. I should go. I have to go pick up the kid from
Yeah,
school.
absolutely. Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, right. We should get wrapping this. So yeah,
But
yeah.
the one thing about the dragon that's interesting is yesterday, I look at like some of the classic movies, and I'm also often thinking about like what are like the really standout because I'm so into movies. I'm like, what are the standout big Hollywood blockbusters? Why are they like, if you think about it spiritually, why are they so popular? Obviously, a lot of these movies are good just because they're great entertainment, and they're all the sort of normal nuts and bolts things. But then on a spiritual level, to me, often there's also a reason why we're so fascinated by them. And then I just try to sort of look at the symbolic imagery associated to the movie in those terms of like what does it say spiritually or archetypally. Like if I look at it as like what would be the closest association in esoteric circles to this imagery of this movie. And I was wearing a Jurassic Park shirt and I was looking
Mm.
down at it yesterday, and I was just like thinking what is this, what is this? And I was like, it's a dragon, a T-Rex. It's a T-Rex. The Jurassic Park thing. It's a dinosaur, obviously, but
Yeah.
what is a dinosaur? It's in my brain at that moment, I was like, it's a dragon. And I was also like, it's the red dragon. And a red dragon to me, because it's like the Jurassic Park logo is a big round circle that's red.
Mhm.
And then the dinosaur is like black in it. But it's for
Mhm.
me, the red and the black you can associate. Basically, I was thinking, I'm looking at a red dragon, and I was just thinking about
Mhm.
how, the red dragon, there's the movie The Red Dragon, which is obviously based on the painting by William Blake. And Blake is talking
Mhm.
about the beast, he's talking about
Oh.
Satan, he's talking about Revelations, and I was just, so my brain was immediately going from like Jurassic Park, this popular movie, to like, I'm looking at the great red dragon, basically. And that to me is like,
Right.
the power of this movie is beyond all the, sort of conventional pop culture reasons for that movie being as powerful and recognizable an icon. It's also, very much because the red dragon is speaking and is being
Mm.
meditated on. And it's that powerful symbol to me, its charge. is partly because, people still connect to these archetypal and biblical, and even transcends these sort of underlying themes. And I don't know, yesterday I was thinking about the red dragon and these and how it
Mm.
comes to Jurassic Park, and there's T, and then I was thinking about the T-Rex and how it's like a T, which is sort of like the cross and spirituality, and I don't know, there's a whole rabbit hole I feel like there. And then I was like looking up I deleted like a script that I wrote earlier about Jurassic Park and Aleister Crowley and things, and I was like, oh, I deleted it. I wanted to like reference it, and I was like, nah, it's crazy, I'll get rid of it. And yesterday I was like looking for it, and I was like, why? I was like, never delete anything. That's
Right.
never
Yeah,
delete
right.
anything.
Yeah, I
Because
totally
you're
hear
gonna be
that.
like looking for it and be like, there was something interesting there. But I think it was to do with like the tetragrammaton in that movie with Christian Bale, um, Equilibrium. That movie has like
Mm.
the T is like a big symbol in that, and they call it it's like the order of the tetragrammaton.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I had
yeah.
this whole sync video where it was like Crowley, because the guy that plays the leader of the Tetragrammaton in Equilibrium is the same guy that plays Aleister Crowley in the TV show uh, Strange Angel, which is about Jack
Yeah.
Parsons. There's like a show, like
Mm.
they made 2 seasons about Jet Propulsion Laboratory and Jack Parsons, and
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Crowley's actually in that.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
the OTO and whatever, and Jack Parsons, and the leader of that. And I just thought this was kind of really interesting connection, and I started making a sync video about it that I then abandoned at some point. But it had to do with how in that Christian Bale movie Equilibrium, the symbol of the T and the tetragrammaton, and then how that to me in my brain was connecting to the beast, and Crowley's name is the beast, and
Hmm.
Revelation. There was this whole thing, and it was I kind of wish I had kept, but it's still there. I just got to rewatch those
Yeah,
movies,
yeah.
sit with it. I feel like to me, Jurassic Park and the dinosaur fascination has a lot to do with the beast, and
Right.
the that love-hate relationship you have with, I feel like kind of like what I was hearing you describe with reality being, the monster and the
Right.
beast. But slaying the beast with the spirits, what saint is it that or angel? Is it Michael?
Yeah, Michael, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I was
Yeah,
just so I think Jurassic Park to me goes into that realm.
that's cool. I was thinking about mentioning that a little bit really quick too, just because of the Gemini theme for this start of this show. I've noticed with the Mortal Kombat movie being out, there's that dragon out again,
Yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
something too like with Uranus is now in Gemini for I think quite a few years, 7 years or something like that. And so with Uranus being like the planet that is the king of the age of Aquarius, to me, there's like some potent stuff that happens whenever there's Uranus involved. And then so you've got like Uranus in the sign of Gemini. And then I see like Mortal Kombat, there's this like the Gemini stuff is all in the because it's Mortal Kombat 2, I guess, is like
You're right. Yeah,
Annihilation.
it's like this the kind of like the 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 dragon and behind the circle with the two. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So there's this big, to me, there's like something about like Aquarius ruling over the like energy lines, like its symbol being the wavy energy lines. It rules over like the kind of like consciousness, like the nervous system, mental energy and stuff like that. And so there's something about Aquarius that connects to the energy lines and like the human spine then, because there's even like supposed to be like, enlightenment in the age of Aquarius and stuff. But so to me, there's something about like Uranus, Gemini, and then like the
Right.
dragon kind of representing Kundalini life force.
Caduceus and the T kind of being like the cross that it goes up to. Yeah,
Yeah, ex
yeah. Uh,
exactly. There's the
and
dragon on
Michael
the.
being like the big movie right now, that sort of connects too. If you look at the movies in
Oh
theaters,
yeah.
you know, Michael, and obviously
Ooh,
uh
fascinating.
the
Yeah.
biggest other Michael movie would be the John Travolta one. So you could literally put the Angel Michael and Michael Jackson. they resonate so clearly, obviously, in
Right.
my
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
timing of those, you if you go to theaters right now, that's what you'd be seeing. And even Mandalorian, which would be the big movie from last week, I've one of the biggest monsters in that would be like there's like a white dragon snake that you can see in
Mm,
trailers as well. So,
yeah.
I don't know, I feel like noticing dragon sinks is like every year I'll go through, oh, here's the dragon cluster. And, you were just tapping into that. It's like, I feel like every year almost there's like a cluster of dragon movies that just come out,
Yeah.
whether it's Worm, like Dune or Snake or actual dragon or whatever it is, they cluster, like what we're talking about. And then, this is classic sync to like think about, well, what are the associations with dragon and beast and, you know, in Bible and literature, in mythology, in, mysticism. And then you can just watch these movies and it's just like, and this would be the tip of the iceberg. If you like go and actually went to the theater and meditated on these things, it would just like this infinite, like very meticulously laid out, like web of connections that just reflect these spiritual, higher dimensional realities of these things. It's like crazy. And I feel like when I'm sharing sync, it's like I'm like doing my best to share the tip of like an iceberg of like infinite stuff that's beneath there. It's like really crazy the level of reflection that we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that really strongly. There was a lot of Mary stuff coming through this year too. You and I were both picking up on some
That's
strong
right.
Mary symbolism. And to
Yeah,
me, that felt
Project
like
Hail
it was coming
Mary
like,
and
man.
all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of even like music is a lot of Mary stuff coming out. It's very interesting. I feel like there's this thing in culture, I think a return to the goddess, with like suppression of the feminine through like, the major religious, movements and stuff. Like there's definitely like a feminine resurgence happening and you can see it in pop, like it I think Mary is like really just like, Gaia, whatever, like the goddess, is coming back in pop in a strong way too, and like yeah, we should talk more maybe in a future episode. I know we're getting close to the end here, so like let's
Yeah.
maybe we'll
Yeah.
wrap on that and like I'd love to talk to you some more about these, other themes that are jumping out of the theaters as we go about our, mundane weeks and
Yeah.
I'll look forward to catching up with you again. Thanks for
For sure.
joining us again today and I always appreciate our conversations.
Me too. Yeah. Very nice. Very great to connect and similar vibes, similar viewpoints. Sometimes you feel like an alien when it comes to like sync, but it's nice when, you see somebody else is on the same frequency. So, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, same man. And so, I hope for anyone listening, thank you for listening and stay tuned because next week we've got Wicca Phase Springs Eternal joining me for an interview and then we'll be talking to Glenn Kreisberg from Spirits and Stone, and just a bunch of exciting people. Jim Sanders too, Jake's buddy.
Awesome.
So yeah,
Cool.
please stay tuned, check out the Patreon and other ways to support and subscribe to Jake on YouTube and Instagram and all that at Sea Lion. And yeah, thank you for listening to anyone who's listening and have a blessed rest of your day.
Take care.
Peace in,
Bye.
peace out.